Making a journal with beautiful papers is my all-time favourite project, and whatever your theme, your supplies, its purpose, it will always be special, personal and unique. You can fill the pages with ephemera, so that's little pieces of paper that you collect from day to day, or you could get arty and use paint and collage and create a beautiful spread. You could make one as a gift or keep it for yourself. You could sell one in an Etsy shop or simply make one to have fun. I like to move with the seasons, and my inspiration and themes and designs tend to come from the colours around me. Hello, it's Joey, and today I'm making a simple junk journal, step by step, for beginners. I'm using a really simple process today to make a junk journal. I'm going to make the cover by decorating a piece of A4 craft cardstock. I'm going to choose some pretty papers to put in my junk journal. So here's a few that I've selected from my craft room, and I'm just going to whittle those down. I'm going to trim them and probably do some folding. So I'll use my paper trimmer, and then I'm going to bring it all together and bind it with a really easy figure of 8 method. And for that I'm using household string and just an old darning needle. So I'll begin by decorating the cover, and then we'll move on to the really fun stage of picking our papers and trimming them down. Today I'm using a piece of craft cardstock which is 180 GSM, and mine is an A4 size, and I'm simply going to fold it in half. I've added a tiny little bit of something extra, which is a light dusting of a goldish, bronzish spray of mica powder and water, and I just have that next to my desk. I mix up different colours and just see what they look like and have a play, and that is sprayed on and I have allowed it to dry. And I'm just going to add to the front some sort of combination of a tag that I made in a video recently. I'll put a link to the tag making video in the description box down below, and that's going to form my focal point for the front of the journal cover. And I'm just going to add a few little bits of paper behind to give it some kind of mat to really make that look like the feature on the front of a journal. This is relatively thick cardstock. You don't have to use cardstock if you don't have it. You could use some sort of scrap card and then add a layer and bind it. I think I used my old university magazine for this one and added an extra piece of scrapbook paper to the outside. I've also used thinner sheets, so on some of my journals I merely use a piece from a map book. So this has held together really well, and it is still a relatively thin cover. Nice little pockets on the inside. We could have a play at decorating this if you're interested. Again, using old scrap cardstock and adding to the front of it just to make up whatever style of junk journal you like. So my suggestion is, if you don't have craft cardstock, use whatever supplies you have, because just putting together something using what you have is a great step forwards. So I will begin by simply folding it over, and I've decided I'm not going to trim it down to be any less than this. I'm just going to keep life simple, fold that over. And as I can't find my bone folder, I'll crisp up the edge just with the handle of a pair of scissors. So now I've got the frame that I'm working within, and I can easily see the dimensions, so it's a little bit easier to decorate than adding materials to the front when it's open. So folding that over, I now know that I'm going to add my little tag. So the decisions I want to make are, what do I put behind it to really bring this together as a picture, and where do I therefore want to position this? This is the main focal point, and I've pulled out just a few little scraps of paper to play with, and I've got a little digital image, I've got a bit of a label, I've got a stamp dangling around here, I might use that. And I inevitably, because I added
a few more tags to my desk today, start to get distracted by thinking, shall I use a different one? I think I'll stick with the one with the button. Obviously, if you're posting this, think about what goes on the front of a tag. This is more at risk of coming off, it always would be. These would go perfectly flat, but all of them have got this texture on them from fabric that I added when we put these tags together. And that's, I think, informative of the theme. So today the theme is carrying on with those naturals, that well-being feel that we had when we put the tag together. So I'll just have a play with where my bits of paper might go. I want some vintage paper on here, so I have a scrap from an old book. I definitely don't like the corners, they're far too regimented, so that's going to change. I like the text on the back, and I like the variety of text on the front, but not the blank up here. So I'm just going to start making some decisions and bring this together. I like tatty edges, so I'm not going to trim this with my trimmer. So I like the arc there. What should we have? I've got a bit of Amazon packing paper. Nice and long. That could go, so that could go behind, and I'm starting to create those layers. And I've also got different shades of natural fawn, which goes really well, I think, with the Hessian thread and the bit of fawn wool that are used here. Okay, so don't like this edge down here being as visible, so I might just limit that with a label. Can I use this on here, or would it be too busy? Quite like the angle we've got, top left, bottom right. I'll put that under there. I think it's almost too much. So I'm going to start just gluing, getting a few decisions down, getting things in place. So it seems that the starting place is this piece of Amazon packing paper. So I think what I'll do is add that first, try and hold these together roughly. Yep, so that can go on. This piece of packing paper is also the remnant from another project I've been making. Just happen to have some handy actually. I've been making these little journal cards with copy paper, and I put it in the window. I made what I called splat paper. So that's a video that's coming out in a couple of weeks. And again, what's going to be visible is the ratty-tatty edge. And I'm not sure that I even want that to be completely glued down. Let's see. I can always add more glue. I do want it to be neatly vertical, and I don't want this tucking out over the left hand side, because if I did want to put this in an Etsy shop or send it to somebody, it would be easier to post, I think, if that isn't overlapping. So now I could add my little piece of vintage book page. So I want to see plenty of the wrapping paper, and I think just to be careful I'll put the glue broadly in the centre and not yet quite to the edges. So that can go about there. Let's just see, test again. So I want the tag to overlap both this and the packing paper. I'll put my little label under there, and I'm just going to add something up here. I think what I'll do is I'll use my stamp and a very lightweight ink pad. Let's just see where that's going to peep out. Be brave and have a go there. All a bit ad hoc, part of the fun. I've got a very, very lightweight amount of pattern coming out, and I think I'm going to add something extra by hand. Always good to allow yourself to play, do whatever you feel like. So these are little brine paint sticks. I've got some in gold. And I'm going to bring just a little bit of that. It will be hard to do once the tag is down. I'm just going to bring some of this together and dirtify it with special gold. My trouble is I see things on my desk and I think, ooh, how about a bit of that? And sometimes it doesn't work. but you know you've had some fun in the process. And I think what I'll do is add my label down here. I want to see some of the label but still have the tag overlapping the Amazon paper, so that tells me where I need my label to go. And then I think I just need some really firm glue on the tag. Just bend it back a bit to straighten it up, and we'll get a decent amount of glue and glue that on. So you could use any of your tags, you could put a pocket on the front. You're just really making a feature of a piece of ephemera, anything that you've made. About there, is that what we think? What do you think? So it's not in the middle, which is good. I don't want it to be plonk in the middle, but it obviously needs to take pride of place on here. Hopefully that is enough to hold it on. Step 2 is choosing the papers, and I have pulled out from various places in my craft room a selection of papers in different sizes, different weights, obviously different designs. Some of them are book pages, so some beautiful book pages here with some gorgeous flowers on. I've got a map page, a bit bigger. I've got some smaller pages with some beautiful flowers on, and maybe you can see that what I've gone for when I've been pulling these out is again something with that wildlife, feel good, spring selection palette of colours and images. So trying to be something like consistent with the intention from the theme on the front. So that's just what I like to do. I've got some gorgeous vintage book page here. This is a page from a really old book from the 1800s. It came out as a double. I wonder if we can use that and preserve its doubleness. I've got a Spanish dictionary, I've got a children's encyclopedia, a children's book with some lovely images on. As you can see, just lots and lots of different styles. There seems to be a bit of a purple and yellow theme appearing. Maybe I was thinking about that, Reader's Digest, as I was pulling out the pages. I've certainly got plenty to choose from here. So what I like to do is pull out about 3 times as many as I need, and then go through them and whittle them down to a mixture of pages that work for me in the junk journal that I'm going to make. So as you can see, I've got some lovely butterflies on some of these. I really like this one because it's matte. It's one of those old children's encyclopedias. I have no problem at all with using pages sideways. I sometimes get that question on my channel. So somehow I'm going to just reduce these to a selection of 12. I'm going to do a single signature journal. So one signature is 12 sheets of paper in my world, and I will then fold those 12 sheets over. I might do some other folds to make maximum use of the pictures on the pages. So what I will do is, oh, lovely, lovely vintage encyclopedia. I've been stamping and painting on these. Love it. Even scrapbook paper, it doesn't need to be old. Nice little modern sheet there with some lovely words on. I'm going to whittle these down to 12, and then I will go through the process of trimming them down and folding them. So I've whittled it down to a dozen, and the way that I've done that is to make a decision first about the middle spread is the one that I tend to think about first. So from that larger collection that we just saw, I've chosen one to be the centre spread, and I wanted one that would be really fantastic and vibrant and happy, and this one seemed to fit the bill. It's even got some pretty pictures on the back. Obviously that is bigger than my journal cover, so I will do some interesting folding just to preserve as much of the picture as possible. I also make a decision up front about what's going to be the front page, so I decided on this one. And again, I'm going to do something to make that be as visible as possible when I fold it. I don't want to cut into the image in any way, so we'll see what we can do with that. And then the rest of the sheets are a very quick selection from that larger pile that I shared. The journals that I make, let's just pick any one to demonstrate the point, have pages in different sizes. I don't trim them all to be neatly to the edge. I actually like the interest of the pages being different shapes and sizes. I wanted this journal to be one that I could do journal spreads in, so I did try to get the pages to be relatively large. There's that map page again, and in this one I included some blank sheets to paint on. I just don't choose to do that in the one that I'm making today. That's just how I'm feeling. So if you wanted to do a little bit more artwork in your journals, you might choose to include some nice paper, some thicker paper, something you could watercolour on. But whatever you want to do is absolutely fine. Children's book page, just bring together perhaps for a single signature about 12 sheets, and then we can just do a bit of folding and trim them down now. So let's begin with the trimming and folding of the centre piece, because that's going to be possibly the most challenging. And what I want to do is make sure that when the signature opens, I'm seeing as much of this image as possible. I'm not going to just trim it off. What I'm going to do, it will fold to be small enough. I am going to fold back. In fact, what I think I'll do is I'll do a double, so that when this folds out, we still preserve the whole picture. So I think it's so special that I want it to be one where I can still see the whole image. So all I've done is make a bit of a gusset style fold. Let's move that out of the way. So it's one where when you pull down, it all comes out and we can see the whole picture. And just a tip, when we come to sew in this middle page, we will do the sewing and bring the thread through so that it doesn't bind that down. So I'll show you later how to make sure that you can use a pull down middle page if you've got a really beautiful image and still see it. So not too difficult. I can now just fold that over, and I'll fold it in the middle. I don't think I particularly need to have the fold anywhere off centre on this one, but it's always a decision. You don't need to fold in the middle of every page, and I probably won't. I wish I had my bone folder. Things go walkabout in your craft room. Do you find that? Do your craft items have legs? So I will have my little cover here and just check every now and again that the pieces that I'm creating will fit in, and I'm just going to work through each of these pages and bring them to be either by folding or trimming the right size for my cover. I'm happy to fold this one up to make it fit, because I'm not losing too much of the image if I do that. So for this one I will just fold that one up, burnish it to make life easy when we come to fold it over. Now I do want to have as much of this image as possible, so on this one I'm not going to fold it in the middle. I'm going to fold to the left of the image so that I can see as much of this when I open the first page. So let's see, about there, maybe even a little bit wider. What I can do, because the back sheet of this piece of paper in the signature will then be, that's going to be lovely, isn't it, will then be small, is I can always add an extra piece of paper on the right here, and that's part of the fun when we come to decorate a junk journal. Adding all those extras, just really, really exciting. So that's going to be my front page, and I've got my middle already done. So all I'm going to do is work through the other 10 and just make them fit in here. I'm not going to make them the same size or height as my front or middle page. As long as they fit within the cover, that's all I want. So this one, I think I'll fold that up. And the other thing I'm thinking about as I go about my folding is to make sure that enough of the back pages of the signature get attention, and by that I mean sometimes the front, the first page that we see, can be the smaller one. So let's not neglect the back 12 sheets of the signature. It's tempting to make the front, the first page we see, always the most exciting, but I want it to work in both ways. So that one, it's not too wide, is it? No, that's good. I think this one I will just fold over. I'm going to have it with the tatty edge at the top and the bold text from the page at the top right, because I like that when I turn the page. This one I'll keep upright. I don't think it makes sense to do it vertically. Really pretty flowers on this one. So I will just fold so that I'm not cutting into the image. So again, I've protected this one in full. You can see all of this image because I've folded not in the middle. Music paper, it's good. Map page, that's really nice. I think for this one I will trim a bit off either side and then have it folding as a gusset horizontally. I'm going to fold that one back. So I'm not losing any of the paper, I'm using as much of each sheet as possible. This won't fundamentally change the image too much. Just checking that that will work. Yeah, and what I've got is a sheet that will fold out like this, and on the back, rather than trim that down, I've just got another flap, and I can choose to add, if I want, an extra sheet on there, and that will make it a really big fold out. I think that will work really well. I've been waiting to use this. It's the front from a Victorian flower album, which I've used. Because the pages are quite thick in the Victorian flower album, I use them as covers in their own right to make just pretty journals, some similar eclectic style, and I think I used it for this one. There's the map page again. This one was maybe more of a woodland theme. Let's see what we have in this one. Yeah, woodland habitats, gorgeous squirrel, absolutely love it. Loved putting that one together. So how can we keep what looks like Alice in Wonderland? I think for this one I'll do a fold up. Keep some of her. Yep, that's plenty. Fold up. You can't really plan all of this. There's got to be some process of thinking and reaction as you put it together. You can choose the pages that look good, but I think you've just got to go with the flow. So on this one, the challenge is that the image is absolutely in the middle. So just to fold it in the middle would really be a way of losing that pretty image. So I'm going to fold one end in. There's a little bit of trial and error in some of this. I'll fold one end in. So I've still got that image. So I could bind along here, and then I can fold here, and I've got the whole of the image protected, and it's not too wide to fit in my cover. Take that down. Yep, perfect. I have a pile on the right. Page number 12. What can we do with this? What do we like on it? What colours work for us? What do we want to protect and preserve? Really like the paper. That's going to be brilliant for holding extra pockets that we add and stick to the pages in the journal. I also like the fact that this flower is here, and I think we'll have a really deep pocket. So I'm going to fold up and I've chosen to fold so that I just protect the word underneath the flower. And the benefit of a deep fold like this is that when we fold this over, which could be done along, again, not in the middle, I think that will work. I keep a really nice couple of images here, and I have a really pretty image of a flower here. And what I'll do in a second is just go through all of these folded pages, and wherever I've said I'm making a bit of a pocket, I'll just add a touch of glue, and I'll show you that in a second. So now I've done a really quick job of folding lots of pieces of paper. They're folded in different ways. There's a bit of a family of colours. You can see the colour pattern emerging, I think. None of that was difficult. It's efficient because I've done all the folding in one, and I'm ready to do a bit of gluing, and then we can bind it in. Where I've folded a piece of paper up to make a little pocket, I'm going to add glue just at the edges. I've already done it on this sheet. This was a very shallow pocket, but you could still tuck tags in. All I've done is add a little bit of glue to the outer side, so I'll just show you where I put it. So a little line of glue on the outer side. You don't need the glue in the middle because the signature itself, as that's folded up and bound in, will provide the strength here. So I tend not to put glue anywhere other than the outside. So now I've got to choose the order in which these go. I know the middle and I know the first page, and all I'm going to do is put them together in a way that adds the most contrast as I turn the pages. So let's just have a go at that, and then we'll make the holes and sew it in. I've chosen an order for my pages, and the key at this stage is to tuck them in to each other's fold in a way that's really tight and close together. And one of the ways that I find easy to do that, something that helps, is to take a ruler, and having positioned them wherever I want, I like the heights to be a complete mixture. I take a ruler, I hold it in the centre, and I just push them all together and just let them settle as close to each other as possible. And at this point it's really good to have some kind of bulldog clip handy to put on your pages, and this will be incredibly helpful as we put some holes in the papers. So let's see if I can just add a few of those to make life easy. I'll fold it over just to test. Does that feel like they're all lined up where the spine and the fold will be? Yes, they do. And one final test to check that when they go in, they're all going to fit within the cover size, and I think that's just about right. I need to find the middle of my signature to begin with, and this is 20 centimetres, and I'm going to make a mark in the middle at 10, and then for a signature of this height, so about 20, I will give about 6 centimetres between the middle hole and a mark that I'm making for the top hole. Let's pull this down and make a mark with another 6 centimetres below the middle. So it's going to be underneath the gusset of paper in the middle, so we can pull that down. And then what I need to do is take my pointy item, my weapon of choice to make the holes. You could do this by putting this collection of papers into the middle of a book and pressing down. I'm going to have a go at pushing through. With a little bit of patience, I can feel it going. It's actually not too difficult, despite the fact that some of those papers are quite thick. And then I will make a hole at the top. I positioned the papers in the signature in a way that I was hoping that the hole would catch all pages all times, but even if your pieces of paper are of very different sizes in the signature, it doesn't matter if some of those sheets don't get 3 holes, because they'll be held in when you sew the thread through. Trying to keep all of the sheets in the same place as I'm doing it. So I will now measure my thread. So I'll have about 3ness. I tripled them. 2, 3, and as we say here, 1 for the pot. Cut that off. Thread my needle. Of course I need to make holes in my cover, don't I? So these are going to be also obviously in the centre and 6 centimetres apart. This is 21 centimetres height, so I've got a bit of give. So at 10.5 I'll have some. And what I'm going to do to minimise risk is take the holes that I've already created and just use those to mark the position where I want to make a hole in the cover. So even if you've gone a little bit askew on putting your holes in your papers, you know that they will line up appropriately in the cover to not stick out top and bottom. So very easy to make my holes in this. Something you could do if you wanted to is ram the corners on your cover. Sometimes I do that. I think today I won't, just don't feel like it. I like the ruggedness of that block of craft cardstock behind the image. I'm going to take my thread and start from the outside with a figure of 8. So bringing the needle through here to begin with, and obviously what we want to be careful about is not letting the thread come all the way through. And then I'm going to start at the top, heading from the outside through the holes that we've already made and hopefully reappearing in the middle. And you might need to take your sheets of paper and wiggle a bit just to get them all through. In fact, what I might do is wiggle a bit with a peg off so I can lever them around a bit. I can just see. Threading them onto my needle. The hardest one is the first hole, I think, because once the papers are on they get lined up. And just gently nudge that through the hole and pull the thread through. Take my needle and go back through the middle hole. Bit of a wiggle. That one's gone through very nicely, which shows it does get easier once you've done the first pass through of thread. Bring that through the middle hole from the inside to the outside. So you can see we're doing a figure of 8. We started at the top, we came through, we're going to pass back through, and now I'm going to bring the string back through that third hole that we've already made. And then back through the bottom hole from the outside in. If you'd like to see a variety of my journals that I make and fill, I have done a video called What is a Junk Journal with quite a bit of imagery from my various projects, so I'll leave that linked in the description box down below. Now as we go through on this one, again I need to remember to have this gusset, this fold down out, and just pass the papers onto the needle. Bring the thread through. There's plenty. So starting to tighten things up, checking that all of the pages are sitting within, and they are, which means that I can confidently and happily take my needle back through the middle hole and just finish this binding off. Here's just a little bit of an acknowledgement. The sewing I did on the binding in the middle went slightly below the fold that I'd made for my gusset. So I'm just going to refold that up slightly below where the string went in, but I still have the gusset there. Ta-ding! Still see the picture. So nothing works perfectly, but everything's still fine. So all I'm going to do is tighten off the sides here. I've got a beautiful amount of squidge going on. I really like that. Making sure that these pieces of thread, this string, is tight enough. So I'm happy with that. And all I do is tie it in a bit of a knot and give that a bit of a bow. And this is my single signature junk journal with a step-by-step process for beginners. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this, and subscribe if you'd like to see more, including these William Morris junk journal covers that I've recently made. Let me know if you'd like to see me make those. I think they're absolutely beautiful. I hope to see you soon.